I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. All will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. Dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Welcome, folks, to the Corporation Nation. It is Thursday, the 13th of March, 2014. I'm Clint, your host. Gosh, at this point, I don't even want to use my last name anymore. That means I come in last. My surname, I'm afraid to use it anymore. Jeez, Daniel, what has Daniel done to me? So we've now got two guests, Wednesdays and Fridays. One goes by Daniel, the other goes by Burt, because they're both smart enough not to use their fictional surname. And today we're joined with Freeman Burt. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, sir. Nice having you back.
Yeah. How'd you do last week?
We missed you, but we managed to get along.
All right, that's good. Well, so I sent you. Well, someone actually sent me an email, and the title of the website that was linked in there is that the United Nations inadvertently confirms the free man concept. Interesting thing. So if you don't mind, Bert, I'm going to read what this thing actually says, because it really verifies a lot of what we've been saying. And for the UN to come out and say this makes it even that much more apparent, that much more realistic that this is what we have to fight. Because really, in my opinion, and I don't know about you, Bert, but I've been chastised in the past, and I'll be the first to admit I've always been, not a fan of the Bible, not a fan of religion, not a fan of any of it. I threw the Bible out with the bathwater. And so I had my own particular understandings of what the quote-unquote mark of the beast and the Antichrist, what those things actually refer to. And I'm going to stick to my guns, because the fundamentalists came out of the woodwork when I said that the Social Security number is the mark of the beast. It's over 130 countries now. The International Social Security Administration. I'm going to stick to my guns. That is the number of the beast, the mark. And I'm going to say that the Antichrist, as it's referred to as an allegory in the story, is not a man. It's a machine. It's a big, massive political entity. Because remember, corporations are people too.
Well, persons.
Persons are people. People is a legal status. So anyway, the UN states the following. It says in one of its papers, it says registration means proof of legal identity. It is vital for securing recognition before the law, protecting rights such as inheritance and making children less vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. We kind of know that's the opposite, actually. Under international law, then, every child is entitled to registration of their birth, including children born to irregular migrants. You wonder why we're having that issue in the United States? Well, here it is. Children of irregular migrants. In other words, quote-unquote, illegal people, if that's even possible. The child who is not registered, listen to this, folks, because remember what the mark is. Okay, the mark, and remember, if you don't believe that this has already happened, go read Section 666 of Title 42 of U.S. Code. It's already in place. Go read it. All right, it says the child who is not registered at birth is in danger of being shut out of society. Oh, that's not biblical. denied the right to an official identity, in other words, a status, a person, denied the right to a recognized name and a nationality. All right, remember, these are all artificial statuses they're talking about, and of course, they're bringing you out of nature. In 2000, an estimated 50 million babies, more than 2/5 of those born were, oh my gosh, unregistered. Remember what we talked about when you register your car and you register your house and you register your children at birth? Yeah, you kind of lose them. The children have no birth certificate. The membership card, and this is what it says, folks, this is from the UN. The children have no birth certificate. The membership card for society that should open the door to the enjoyment, and enjoyment is a legal term. Please remember that. It means to be able to utilize the law. So the membership card, the birth certificate, is the membership card for society that should open the door to the enjoyment of a whole range of other quote-unquote rights, including education and health care, participation, and protection.
Protection from who?
Yeah, exactly. When the mafia says protection, they mean pay them money, right?
It's protection from themselves.
Take your home. This digest from the United Nations examines the situation of children who are denied a fundamental human right or who, in legal terms, do not exist. How can you have war crimes against a people if the people are not registered? They don't exist in the laws of government. You can't do a crime against a person that doesn't, or a man, or a boy, or a child, or a woman, a lady that has no artificial person. They have no rights, according to government, unless they're registered to government as basically chattel slaves. One more little part here. Registration at birth, this is continuing with the quote, registration at birth is a fundamental human right that confers a distinct legal identity on every child. Yes, the artificial person. That's what identity is. The paper emphasizes that while a person's name may be their most distinctive mark of individuality, let me read that again. The United Nations paper emphasizes that while a person's name, we've talked about that, may be their most distinctive blemish of individuality, additional information such as age, family ties, and nationality promote the child's right to legal protection by parents and, more importantly, by the state. Every child is entitled to state protection against exploitation and abuse. In this case of the unregistered child, however, he or she has no guaranteed protection of a specific national jurisdiction.
Yeah, and the part that's very interesting about this is that people need to realize that when they talk about exploitation or anything along those lines, it means anyone who doesn't have the legal authority to exploit you.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about this before, Burt. Burt, what is protection? What does protection mean?
Protection actually means an exchange of your duty to them and for them to allow you to then exercise their privileges within their realm.
So the truth of the matter is that they have to take away your natural God-given birthright and exchange and get you to be convinced to exchange those natural rights for political ones.
You have to make a trade.
They can't bestow anything upon you if they don't have it to give. So you must give it away. And then they give it back to you in the political form. All right, folks, we'll be back. Stay tuned. want to remind people that as far as the United Nations goes, we're basically at the brink of what happened in 1789 or so, when people really had no choice. You had a bunch of people who claimed to be the government said, well, we can't just have a confederacy or a confederation. Because that's actually in the dictionary. You look up what confederation actually means. It's a treasonous, bunch. It's a criminal activity, actually. So we can't really have that. We have to have a central government. We're going to go ahead and create it, and it's basically going to it's going to benefit our progeny. So right now, those same people, the progeny of those same people, are now deciding for you, without any vote, just like the people in that time had no vote about the Constitution. When I say people, I mean the men and the inhabitants of all of that land. These people just came up and said, we're now the government. We're the Congress. We're gonna be the central government for 50 different states. Well, obviously 13, but who's counting? And of course the territories that they were creating. Now those same people are basically going, well, let's do the same thing. Only this time we'll create the United Nations. We'll join that as one nation, along with 100 and however many nations are in thing. And you have no vote on it whatsoever, because the government is not your government. It has nothing to do with you. You don't vote for it. You don't vote for president. I don't give a crap what you believe. Go look up the word voter. Go look up the electors. You'll find that the people who elected the president of the United States in 2012 were governors, attorney generals, state senators, mayors, leaders of unions. That's who elects the president every year. Go look. It's on Wikipedia. Go type in the 2012 Electoral College members. Go see who it was. You'll be amazed. But it certainly isn't you who votes for president, because it's a corporation. The members do that. The board of directors.
But besides, even if you voted directly for them, what are those people doing? They are representing you.
Yes.
And to top it off, whatever they do on your behalf, they're not liable for it. You are.
Absolutely. So now you could see why the United Nations, which is again running the Social Security, the international Social Security fraud, the scheme that they call it. And yes, that is what they call pensions, by the way, because that's what Social Security really boils down to. They call it a scheme. You're all involved in a scheme, a pension scheme or insurance scheme. All right, scheme is not a good word, but that's exactly what it is. So it goes on, because this is important, because they have to get every country, or I should say nation, because it's United Nations, just like United States. We're just now a nation of the United Nations. They have to get every country in a nation in the same mindset. We all have to be registered. We all have to have a number, the number of the beast. The beast is the United Nations. Okay, and don't forget, all these unions that are forming also have emergency powers. All right, so each, United Nations is going to have emergency powers to declare basically military rule, martial law. It's the same thing. The same thing is happening, and all of us have no vote whatsoever, just like Spooner stated in his Constitution of No Authority. It's pretty incredible, Bert, what's actually happening. You can see it happening, and you can see that people are freely taking the blemish, the mark.
Well, and what's sad is that all of these things are very preventable. Now I know that you spend a lot of time and effort trying to get people to pay attention to the words, and I mean, when I'm finding out, because of course I spend 10 to 12 hours a day with my head in the codes, ordinances, and statutes, and what is becoming so clear is that the legal language is truly a foreign language, and what is happening now is they are actually slowly making the legal language become the natural language, but to your detriment, not to get you to speak the truth, but to get you to speak a lie.
Absolutely. That started long ago, I'm afraid, and we've just been conditioned to call a cup and call a dog, and call everything has a legal name.
Yeah, and I mean, they get us to speak. They get you to ask. I mean, they ask you a question, and then you answer with legal terms that you do not comprehend.
Right. It's like you could say it's a foreign language, or you could say it's the same language with foreign meanings. So you combine two words together, and you even put it in the dictionary. You say, well, in real language, in the language of emotion and love and feelings and all the great, wonderful things in life, that's what this word means. Go ahead, play with Barbies. It's all fun. Yeah, but in reality, like you said, the same word can literally sentence you to death or prison, and that's a frightening concept. So you combine the language, you make the words the same, and no one's ever really the wiser until it's too late.
Yeah, and I mean for example, like I'm getting very involved in all these things that have to do with drugs and all this kind of things, trying to decipher just what it is. And I accidentally came across, trying to comprehend what the so-called legal laws that deal with alcohol, drinking and driving and all that sort of thing, and even alcohol tax. The alcohol tax that they put on people for, conducting their own distilleries and all that kind of thing. It has nothing to do with the reality of it. They're taxing alcohol, but if you study what alcohol is, there's all kinds of different forms of alcohol. And they just happen to call your wine, your beer, your whiskey, whatever.
No. You just happen to call it. It's not that they call it. They offer you a piece of paper that says, "Is this alcohol? Are you a U.S. citizen?" And you say, "Bah, yes, I am." Yeah. Oh, you mean it is alcohol, so I'll pay your tax. That's what's happening.
Yeah, but when you look at the truth, this is what is blowing my mind. When you look at the truth of your relationship with these people, you are a liar.
Yeah.
You are lying in order to be part of their system. Because you are not what you say you are. You are not doing what you say you're doing. You have to lie in order to participate in their system.
Well, you have to lie to say that you're a person that you're not. You have to claim to be artificial, and you're not. I mean, it's that simple. Oh yeah, Bert. I don't know. We're obviously on the same path. Maybe go in different directions every once in a while, but we always come back to the same reality, which is that none of this actually is. It's not real. It's the Matrix. It's so amazing to cut this stuff into little pieces and diagnose it.
And here's the part. I mean, in the legal system, they make a big deal about perjury, right? But yet their whole system is based on nothing but perjury. If you don't perjure yourself, you cannot be part of it.
Well, and that's both the beauty and the detriment of the law and the maxims of law, because it says seller beware, buyer beware, and purchaser beware. So, if you're buying into this, beware. The law doesn't help you. The law is not designed to help someone who buys in and lies. It says, yes, I am this status, therefore I'm better than the other. We'll be back, folks. Stay with us. since since I started looking into this language stuff, I realized that I've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of presumptions that I now actually have to rebut from my own conscious, my own battle of the ego, if you will. I have to realize that a lot of the things that I've thought were true actually have legal meanings that trump whatever it is I believe. I want to give you an example of that. Now, we talked about the fact that basically if you don't acknowledge God, doesn't matter really what you actually believe in your heart. You're not talking about that. We're talking about how to get out from under the legal fiction. So the only way to do that, when someone is claiming to be God on earth and the supreme power in that respect, and that power is based on a higher authority, which is God, then you must basically be of God, capital G, to get out from under little g, God. Doesn't matter, again, if you believe it. But you better darn well follow the rules that are set out, because otherwise you will be under the little g. So, give you an example of this. Now, we talked about Christianity. Christianity was turned into a legal status. When they were burning and feeding the Christians to the lions, that was because they would not be governed. They would not fall under the king or the church, which is basically the same thing. They wouldn't say that the Pope was their master or that the king was God on earth. They would not. They followed the teachings. They lived without government. Now, I used to say that these were anarchists. I used to believe that anarchy was actually a sort of a good thing. But now, I'm saying, okay, I see. What this has been being promoted by people who either don't know what they're talking about because they don't know the dualistic nature of language, or, to be honest, folks, I think government would like nothing more than a bunch of anarchists. You know why? Because here's the noun. Here's the name. This is what it means to have a legal status called anarchy. Are you an anarchist? Well, you know what that means? It means want of government. You hear that? Anarchy, yes, it means that you don't have something, but it also means you want government. And therefore, as a legal status, a proclamation that you make, anarchy is actually a bad thing, because government doesn't want you to acknowledge God because it wants to be God. What does want mean? The noun, again, the legal concept, to be defective or deficient in, to fall short, to not contain or have. A deficiency, a defect, the absence of of that which is necessary as a want of power or knowledge for any purpose. So in other words, if everybody claims to be anarchists, then these people require you to be under them by force. They are God. Does that make sense? Does that start to hit home? I've been saying that, and now I'm starting to understand why people are correcting me. No, Jesus is not or was not considered an anarchist. He no, absolutely not. His government was of God. And that's the only way you can get from under, is to not accept those legal statuses. So Christian and anarchy now are legal statuses. You must never call yourself that in an official capacity. It's okay to say Christian, but never in a legal capacity, because it will put you as a corporate Christian, someone registered. And I'm starting to understand how these words really work. So anarchy means want of government, a state or society, when there is no law or supreme power, and when the laws are not efficient and individuals do what they please with impunity. Political confusion. Well, guess what, folks? That's exactly what the United States is, because, you see, you're not acting under your own responsibility. You're acting under your person. And each person has a different status that gives them certain rights and privileges to do certain things. So that's how we need to interpret this. Very clever. Want of government, the state of society, when there is no law or supreme power. So you must be governed. You can't have a bunch of people without God, basically, without
well, and I mean, and the way they're seeing you, which fits with this UN thing that you just read, is that basically they're seeing you like a bunch of wild cattle running around that someone needs to claim for their benefit. And if you don't have a legal status, it means that no one yet has claimed you.
True. Just like a cow with no brand.
Yeah, somebody needs to put a brand on you. Somebody has to allow you, give you the right, because every cow has a right to be part of a farm.
I just ate a nice juicy steak today. And I'd like to give my condolences to the cow who was of that farm, and I'd like to give my same condolences to all of you cows listening that are of the farm of the United States. Here's what else it says. United Nations here says birth registration is a permanent and official record of a child's existence. It can be generally defined as the official recording of the birth of a child by some administrative level of the state and coordinated by a particular branch of government. Registration at birth is a fundamental human right and that confers a distinct legal identity on every child. That is literally saying the unthinkable. It is establishing the mark of that particular beast on every child. It is registering them as artificial and something that needs to be governed. Ideally, birth registration is part of an effective civil registration system that acknowledges the existence of a person before the law. Remember what we said about the word injure? You see, the state needs to injure you because injure means to put into the law or its law. So birth registration is part of an effective civil. Remember, pagan, civil means godless, civil, pagan registration system that acknowledges the existence of a person before the law. You can't be a person before the law if you're not registered as a person. It establishes his or her family ties and tracks the major events of that individual's life from birth to marriage and parenting to death. A fully functional civil pagan registration system should be compulsory, universal, permanent, and compulsory. They said compulsory twice. You know what compulsory means, don't you, Bert?
Isn't that related to the church somehow?
It means you're forced. A fully functional civil registration system should be compulsory, universal, and permanent. Permanent. That means you don't have the option to not be anything else. By force, by violent force, by illegal force. Compulsory. Compulsory means you are compelled or compulsed to do something. In fact, I'll look it up.
Yeah, but I thought he had a more deeper meaning that was related to the church.
Well, let's find out.
Mm-hmm. But here's another thing that people really need to kind of consider. If you're in a situation where you are being threatened about doing this or doing the other, are you then in a situation of something that is anywhere near being righteous? I mean, in the in the general comprehension of whatever God is supposed to be, you're supposed to have choice.
Supposed to, aren't you?
And the penalty comes from yourself. God is not trying to punish you for not following his orders.
Well,
yet
compulsion.
These people are.
Yeah, compulsion means the act of driving or urging by force, physical or moral, force applied, constraint of the will, the application of force that is irresistible. Oh, more biblical truisms coming. A little foreshadowing of what's to come. The beast that is the United Nations. We'll be back.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Or maybe if I press this button. Imagine every person that you see is somewhat different from every other person in the world. Some can do some things, some can do others. Did you ever think of the many things you've learned to do? Many things you learned. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind?
Alright, we're back, folks.
You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind.
It's interesting, Bert. It's so funny. The word consent is an interesting word too, because you can look it up in two different versions. The word consent. Now, for people listening, of course, we're all basically presumed to be one big, large body politic, and we all give up our rights in exchange for government privileges that are uniform and equal, and we are equally, of course, under the punishment of law, equally to be taxed, equally to be exacted, equally to be punished, equally to get a big boot in the side of our head. It's funny because the word consent, spelled C-O-N-C-E-N-T, means to sing in accordance, to sing. Concert of voices, concord of sounds, harmony as the consent of notes, consistency and accordance as in consent to a man's own principles. Isn't that funny? Because that's exactly the reason that this system continues. This government system is because we're all in harmony. We are all equally, basically, not doing a damn thing to stop it. We are consenting as we are consenting through consent. Consent means we agree with what's happening, and consent means that we're all in accordance, basically, because we don't know how to fight it. We sit around and we just complain about it. We do nothing about it. That's actually a really interesting word.
Yeah. Now, I like people to kind of think about this here for a minute, because I've had actually a few people ask me that, well, if you're in court or you're dealing with this government people, and they were to ask you, well, what's your name? Who are you? How could you respond and not basically put yourself into their trap? And this is the way that I would respond. I would say, well, I am who I am, and you have to prove me otherwise.
Just I am is fine. They know exactly what you're going to be meaning when you say I am.
Well, but then they have to prove otherwise. So that means anything else that they try to apply to me, they have to prove.
Well,
and
so
that's the reality of how it works.
So you're basically going back to the concept of shut the heck up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I am who I am, nothing else. Don't say anything else. Are you Clint Richardson? No. Yeah. Or just silence, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is such a, I know I've already said it several times, but it's such a huge mountain of principle, but it's so so easy to overcome, but yet so impossible for people to just keep their mouth closed. Don't make their conviction, don't make the guillotine move a little bit faster toward your neck.
Yeah, because again, every word you say is a legal word, no matter whether you mean it to be or not. Because when you're talking about the foreign language that's the same language, they only hear in that dialect, whereas what you're speaking may not be that dialect, but they only hear their dialect because that's all they're allowed to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, I am hoping that people are getting from all this time that they're spending listening to, please, do not take anything at face value, because it could be extremely dangerous. It's like drinking poison and you don't know what it is. You don't know what the side effects is going to be. I mean, look at what they are trying to do now with this health benefit thing. I mean, I'm in that process right now. They say, you register with our system, okay, and you will get a subsidy from the government, and your health insurance will cost you, let's say, $250 a month. If you don't go with this, it's going to cost you $500 to $800 a month. I mean, what kind of scam is that?
Well, it's a great scam. Are you kidding, man? It's wonderful. It's what do you think a subsidy is? That's taxpayer money, right? They're just gonna that's just creating money, basically, adding it onto the debt. I mean, it's brilliant. People look at this stuff and say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. It's broken. It doesn't work right." It works exactly the way it's supposed to, because it's not real. It's legal. It's anything can happen. It's a fictional world, and you can do anything you want. You can create money out of thin air. You can create status. You can call someone a king. You can be a princess. I mean, you can do anything you want. It's wonderful. No, not really, folks. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, people, they are tricking people again into getting themselves deeper and deeper into the system for a benefit. For a benefit of health care. In order for you to get health care, you basically have to tell them, the diameter and depth of your rectum in order for you to get it.
Oh, no. I take over, Bert. I got to go measure. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, no. Yeah, and what I don't get is why people think that this is a requirement. What is it about the Obamacare that people think it's a requirement? Just say no. I mean, it's just either that or get rid of your insurance and go get private insurance. You don't have to have insurance where you were. I mean, it's all just a matter of saying no. It's not required. No requirement. That's ridiculous.
I mean, here's another thing that people don't realize. When this so-called governments take over a certain area, they cannot be successful without the local population submitting to their authority.
Which is that's why they don't change the laws. They keep them as in the Labor Code, it's specific. They don't change the laws. They keep the same system. They even keep the same politicians to make people feel better.
Yes, because what good is it going to do you to have 1 million acres if there's no one there to work the 1 million acres? You sure as hell aren't going to get out there with a plow and plow 1 million acres.
Not with my rectum in the state it is. But
of enjoyment.
Well, see, and that's the ironic part. It's the same thing applies to these billionaires. What do you think that the Rothschilds can do if no one accepts their funny money?
Yeah.
What exactly do you think they are? You really think they're wealthy? No. They just have a bunch of digital little symbols that we pretend is wealth, right? Mm-hmm. It's not real. If you stop accepting it as wealth, as money, then they're bankrupt. They're broke. Their money has no value, and their decisions and their everything else makes no difference in your life, because and again, this goes back to the most important part, because remember, we're always talking about force. Everything we've discovered this along the way, Bert, you and me, and it was real difficult to get to the final conclusion that everything is under military jurisdiction. We are a militarily run nation. It is under martial law. Martial law is simply the violent form of military rule. And the only solution, folks, is to stop participating as law enforcement officers. Quit gaining the status of law enforcement officer, because it really gives you nothing except a piece of paper and a badge that says you have a license to harm, to break the law, right? I mean, it's a license to use violent force, which is illegal or unlawful, excuse me. So the trick here, folks, there's only one thing we can do. That's the honest truth, and that is to get to the military, to get information to the military and the police, to let them know just what the heck it is they're protecting. Problem is, oh, there goes their pensions. Oh, there goes their paychecks. Oh, gee, what are they going to do? Well, we better think of something quick, because we're about to get a bunch of boots in our head.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is it. Everything relies on the ability to enforce law. Congress would be a moot. The judge would be nothing without the sheriff. The sheriff does everything the judge tells him. We'll be back, folks. Stay with us.
Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
Welcome back, folks, to the Corporation Nation. My guest today, Freeman Burt from Colorado. And we are talking about, we're talking about various things, but for the most part, we're being subversive, Burt. What do you say? Are we subversive today?
Well, I don't know. We're being rebellious. I know that. But getting back to this birth certificate thing that you started talking about, people really need to realize that it's actually very easy not to have a birth certificate. When you are giving birth to your most valuable thing, there's something that no one can explain to you until you have your own child, you know? So you, Clint, you won't understand this. You could only hear about it, right? It's just like certain pains, you don't understand it until you experience it. But to me, the greatest thing in my life is, my little boy and my little girl. And the concept of me, registering my children like I did. I made the same mistake that a lot of people have done. But I came to find out that it's actually very easy not to do it. You just simply don't do it. Don't go to the counter and register your children. But it begins actually at the hospital. At least the one thing that I was able to do is not to put that number of the beast on my children. They don't have Social Security numbers. And that was very easy to do. At the hospital, when you are taking care of your baby, they immediately start throwing forms at you. And remember, a form, when they give you a form to fill out, they're in fact giving you a box and they're telling you to jump into it. And then they give you a pen and they give you everything you need to do it. So the form that they gave us to fill out, we said, no, thank you. Actually, we cannot fill it out. We're incapable of filling it out because we don't even know the name of the baby. We haven't decided. And that was enough to keep them at bay.
Well, even if you hadn't decided, you wouldn't tell them, right? I mean...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course we know the name.
So you're basically saying stay outside the box. And actually what you're really saying is, again, shut the heck up. That includes with your pen, too, right? Don't fill out the form.
Yeah, because every form, if you notice, you look at the forms, they're all boxes. They're putting you inside of a box.
I don't know what that was. I thought I heard
that was me. They got my door open here and they won't close it.
Well, whatever. That was kind of funny.
I tried to mute myself so it wouldn't come through.
Well, it didn't. Oh, that's funny.
But anyway, it's a very simple thing to do. Just don't do it. It's so amazing, And then, of course, we, because my wife is from another country, we had to get them passport because at the time I didn't know what other way to do except to get them a passport so they can go visit, the family back at home, and the people at the passport place, basically at the post office, were saying, oh, but you don't have a Social Security number. You put all zeros on there. I don't know if you can get one. We're like, oh, yeah, we can get one. You don't need a Social Security number.
You don't need to protect me.
Yeah. And, they have one. They got one. They have a passport. And, I tell my friends and different people, I say, hey, both of my children have the same Social Security number. Really? How did you manage that? They're not twins or anything. I said, no, it's one's a boy, one's a girl. They both begin with zeros and they end with zeros. Oh, so you mean they don't have one? How did you do that? Just don't fill out the form.
Right. I mean, it's a negative action. How do you do it? You just don't do it.
I mean, it's so simple, And the funny thing is, as we were going out the hospital, I mean, literally the glass doors are opening up. And, when you're leaving the hospital, they always put you in a wheelchair until you get to the outside of the hospital. So they're pushing my wife with the baby out the door, and the glass doors are opening. We're like, oh, my God, there's the light. We're almost out of here. And the nurse taps me on the shoulder and is like, yes, Mr. Aranguren, do you have the name for your son yet? We're like, we still haven't decided. I'm sorry. And the poor nurse, I mean, she's running, with the form, in her hand, and she looks so sad, that she wasn't able to get it. But I actually do have the information somewhere in my old computer files, which I'm still looking through it, because I found somewhere that the hospitals get, and this was quite a few years ago, like $5,000 when they submit the name of your baby to the Social Security Administration.
Yeah, well, that's why she was running after you. She's like, oh, I'm not going to get my commission for this one.
Yeah, and and what's fun is, like, for our son, it cost $3,800 because we paid everything ourselves. It cost $3,800 for everything from beginning to the end. Okay, now just think about that. $3,800 for everything. They were going to make more just by giving a name.
Yeah. You mean more profit, more than they actually did for the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were going to get whatever this thing is, because people also are under this misconception that in this commerce world, which actually I made a connection about how and why you're in commerce, But these things that they call dollars are nothing more than units of credit.
Yeah.
That's all they are. So in order for you to be in commerce, you actually have to be in credit, in debt.
Right.
Without debt, without credit, you're not participating in the system. Try to pay any of these companies with real silver or real gold. They cannot accept it.
Absolutely not. And then you'll have the purists, the constitutionalists will say, no, gold and silver is real money. It says so in the Constitution. Really, what does God say? You know, it's like, what is real money to you? Well, it depends what I'm using the particular day. You see, the Constitution doesn't say that gold and silver is the only coin or the only currency or the only money. It just says that the United States can print it. That's all it says. It doesn't say anything that I mean, nothing in the Constitution says anything that is another fallacy. That gold and silver are that's why we have the dollar, folks, because gold and silver are not the only currency. Anything can be a currency. Of course, I looked up the word form. You know, you said don't fill out the form. Well, you know, when we think of the word form, we think of the shape or external appearance of your body, the thing you can actually touch, taste, and feel. I don't know about taste. But then it goes on. It's a manner of arranging particulars, disposition of particular things as a form of words or expression. A model, a draft, a pattern. So you're literally a rough draft. Regularity, method, or order. A rough draft to be reduced to form. Form being a paper. External appearance without the essential qualities, an empty show. We'll be back.
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. It can crash. Be water, my friend.
Welcome back, folks. We're in the Corporation Nation.
So you gotta just keep on.
So the word form, external appearances without the essential qualities, an empty show. But here's what else it says, folks. And I'm in 1828 Webster's. Stated method, an established practice, a ritual or prescribed mode, as the forms of public worship. Oh, man. The forms of judicial proceedings, the forms of civility. Remember what all those words mean? That's a powerful, powerful definition right there. A stated method, a ritual that we all go through. We all sign inside the little box. We sign on the dotted line. And, of course, when we hold up a magnifying glass to any dotted line, we find out they're not dots. They actually say authorized signature because, of course, that's where your person signs to authorize all of his chattel, bonds, whatever. You ever done that, folks? You ever held a magnifying glass up to one of your checks where it says sign on the dotted line? Yeah, it says authorized signature, authorized signature, authorized signature. It's not dots. It's a ceremony. That's what a form is, according to Webster's 1828. Ceremony, as it is a mere matter of form. A determinate shape, a likeness, or an image. So there's other really interesting ones, but we'll
here's the funny thing. A lot of these forms, once you begin to see these things, so many things just become so obvious. Many of these forms that you will fill out, everything, all the information that you give them is in a box, except one thing, your signature.
Ah.
The signature will be the only thing that is outside of any box.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which means that the only thing of value on that paper is actually your signature. Because technically anything that's in a box, on a paper, on a legal paper, is not part of the paper.
Well, here's another word for you, Burt, that you'll appreciate, and I'm sure the audience will appreciate. And I'm going to do it in the... My people, you are all fornicators. You are all guilty of fornication. We think, oh, come on. What does fornicate mean? Well, it used to mean the verb is to commit lewdness, and as an unmarried man or woman, or as a married man with an unmarried woman, blah, 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 blah. The incontinence or lewdness of unmarried persons. That's not what it means, folks. That is not what it means. Here's what it means. Idolatry. A forsaking of the true God and worshiping of idols. You know what that means? That means you're fornicating the second that you put your little mark in the box. You're fornicating. You're idolous. You're what's the word?
Idolatrizing.
Something like that. And you're actually you're a fornicator, which is an idolater. Okay, so in other words, you're respecting a person. You're respecting the artificial thing when you should only be respecting natural things. Isn't that amazing? Again, fornication. Yeah, that means something to do with sex. Of course, they're going to sell us our own language with as much sex as possible. But really, the word fornicate in law, as we've discussed before, actually, now that I think about it, means that you're an idolater. You're giving yourself to government. So we're all idolaters, literally. No preacher from some Catholic church needed, because they're not telling you what it really means. They're trying to get you to come to the church, give them money, come into their little box so they can bless you with some water and say you're forgiven. Yeah, that's not how it works, folks.
Well, and see, and that's the funny thing is that, everything that we think we live in is in fact parallel to something that is in fact real. Okay, so we actually exist. We think we live, but we live or exist in a parallelity, and everything that deals with everything that is around you, it's always dealing with something that it's very simple. It's either lesser than you or it's greater than you. And whenever you're dealing with the so-called government, it's always greater than you. You're always lesser to it.
You're subservient. You are a servant. You are a subject. You are a
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all it is. And the truth is, and we've talked about this before, that the government is a giant, big old church. That's all it is. And you are members of the church.
Absolutely. And the Magi control it, from the Magi straight to every other form of Magi.
And when you go to their court and you are you present yourself as a defendant, you are there to be judged and then be punished.
Well, no, you're actually there to remember. You're actually there to pray to the court for forgiveness. See, we take the Bible that we're supposed to pray to God forgiveness, but the Bible really is saying that you pray to the Lord God of earth, that the judge acting as his vicar, and you're supposed to pray in court. Look up the word pray; it's right there.
I mean, and here's the disgusting thing: you can go to church, you can go to church, you can go to their church, okay, their court. And you can have two men that were convicted of the same crime, but they will not receive the same punishment.
Yeah.
The same punishment depends on whether that priest sitting there with the black robe believes that you repented. If one man repents before the judge, he will get a very minor sentence. If the other man doesn't repent, just simply by saying, "There's nothing for me to repent, Your Honor. I cannot lie to you. I did nothing wrong." So, well, you get maximum punishment, sir. Take him out of here. And he'll give that man the maximum sentence.
And see, this is what we're trying to tell people on Wednesdays with Daniel. This is why he says Christian remedy in law. The reason that judge is punishing you is because you have no remedy. You're not invoking the very thing that would subsume his authority, this authority he claims to the very same thing. He's acting as the replacement of Christ. If you invoke Christ, if you invoke God in court, suddenly Yeah, it changes things. You see, you have no remedy. That's really what's happening. And so he's the one that is deciding the punishment. If you look at the word oath and you look at the word sacrament and sacramentum, which actually means oath, you see, and the reason that they have people take an oath and they swear in court on the Bible is because you're literally saying my actions are going to be punished by God. That is what that means. It's not my opinion. It's not it's what it means. It's what these words actually mean. That's why politicians prefer to affirm in court, because an affirmation is saying, well, my actions are not punishable. I'm affirming that I'm telling the truth because I'm an upstanding, citizen. You're taking it out of the natural world, and you're saying my, artificial person stands with a good reputation, therefore I will tell the truth. That's why these people like to affirm, and they have that option. So they take it from religion to pagan, basically. It's really interesting. Also, the Mormon president always affirms. He never swears to God to tell the truth. We'll be back, folks.
And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart, closer to the heart. Blacksmith and the artist reflected in their art. They forge their
So, to be clear here, we go to Bouvier's Law Dictionary of 1856, the Dictionary Act, and we read the word oath. It says, oath is a declaration made according to law before a competent tribunal or officer to tell the truth. Or, it is the act of one who, when lawfully required to tell the truth, takes God to witness that what he says is true. It is a religious act by which the party invokes God not only to witness the truth and sincerity of his promise, but also to avenge his imposture or violated faith. Or in other words, oh boy, frog, excuse me. Or in other words, to punish his perjury if he shall be guilty of it. It is proper to distinguish two things in oaths: the invocation by which the God of truth, who knows all things, is taken to witness, and the imprecation, I think that's the word, by which he is asked as just and all-powerful being to punish perjury. Thus we say, so help you God, or it used to be swearing on the evangelists, and the origin of the oath, it says, may be traced to the Roman law, and the kissing the book, the Bible, is said to be an imitation of the priests kissing the ritual as a sign of reverence. Now, I don't care what your opinion is, folks. When you take an oath, it is an oath to God. That is what a legal oath is. It is to put you in a position where you've just not sworn to the court, you've sworn to God to tell the truth. Now, what the courts have done, they've put themselves in the place of God. So when you take an oath, you're swearing an oath to uphold all the rules and procedures of the court. This is why you should not necessarily take an oath. Now, someone sent me, actually Hal sent me James 5, James 5:12. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath. But I'm not going to read that. It's too much. But you get the picture. So now, so we understand the opposite of that, it says, is an affirmation. What is an affirmation according to the same dictionary? One who makes affirmation instead of making an oath that the evidence which he's about to give shall be the truth if he had been as if he had been sworn, not that he is sworn. Affirmation is a practice, a solemn declaration, asseveration, which a witness makes before an officer competent to administer an oath. So before an officer, not before God, but before an officer, conscientiously scrupulous against taking corporeal oaths. Well, who in the heck would possibly be conscientious against taking an oath to God? Well, how about the President Joseph F. Smith in the Reed Smoot case? Page 80 of that case says very clearly, we should like to have Joseph F. Smith take the stand. Is Joseph F. Smith present? Now, of course, they're calling out for his artificial person. Is Joseph F. Smith present? And, of course, he answers, yes, sir. It goes on to say, that will be noted. May I ask your full... that's it. It says, Mr. Smith, will you be sworn? What does Mr. Smith answer? The president of the so-called Christian church called Mormon? I prefer to affirm, if you please. Now, do you have any recollection? Do you have any clue how powerful that statement is coming from someone who is the head of a church of supposedly Christian origin? Do you have any idea how huge it is that a man like that, who supposedly is Christian, would not swear, would prefer to affirm? That's huge, folks. That should tell you so much. Of course, the Reed Smoot case, which is why it's so important in truly, is because all the Congress didn't want a Mormon to be a senator or congressman, and throughout the case, the church is revealed to own so many corporations it'll make your head spin, railroads and everything else. It's amazing, actually, what you see. And again, what we're talking about is corporation soul. That's what this was. The corporation of the president of the church, blah, 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 that's the name of the corporation's soul. This is fact, easy to verify. Well, not easy to verify. It took me forever to figure it out. So the point here is that the oath is not quite what we all, think it to be. And it's usurped in the courts because they're usurping the power of God. So you're swearing an oath to the government when you do it. Burt.
Well, the thing is, this is what people need to realize. When you're in court and you give your oath, what happens if they catch you lying? Who's going to punish you? It's the state.
Yeah.
They're acting as God.
Absolutely.
And they're not even going to give you a trial. They're just going to take you directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Yeah.
Now here's one thing that's really important, and it ties in all these things that we're talking about here. Is that no one can force you to do anything. Now, I've been having trouble with some people that I'm helping to really absorb that concept. Now, yesterday we had one that you could call administrative win in Florida. Actually, there's one fellow that I'm helping down there. The city was coming after him for code violations. And we basically dissected their code so thoroughly that I don't think if they'll ever be able to respond to the questions that we put to them. But they're all based on their codes. But anyway, the end result is they ended up dismissing their accusations against this gentleman. And right now, they were threatening him with $250 to $500 a day for this violation. Okay? And he went to a hearing that they offered him instead of responding to our questions. And before this gentleman made it inside of that room, he knew he was not going to answer anything. He already knew that. And he knew that it didn't matter what they threaten him with, he was not going to answer any of their questions. And the very first question that they asked him is, sir, we need you to, before you can speak in here, we need you to take an oath. He said, I'm not about to do that.
No way.
And you're not going to make me.
Right.
Huh? And he still managed to speak, because actually the attorney for the board, 7-member board, came to his defense and said, well, no, he can still testify. We just have the right to challenge his testimony later.
Well, that's because that's because they don't want to get sued. I mean, if people knew they could sue these, I mean, if people actually knew that they took your taxpayer money, put it in a fund, what's it called? Risk management fund. Every city has one. In fact, they're required to by law. If everybody knew that every city, county, state, everything else has a risk management fund, and they generally pool their funds, big investment fund, they invest all the money, that's where all the lawsuit money comes from. You see, you are paying for lawsuits, not the city.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's actually what you can sue the city anytime you want, and you can ask for, and guess what? The city is now just on equal footing as you, because it's just a thing. And you know, it's pretty crazy. I want to read one more definition here, because, you know, people don't think about this. People don't think about looking up words that they think they know what they mean, right? I mean, why would you look up, for instance, the word religion, right? You know what a religion is. Well, do you? You see, religion in the legal dictionary is different, right? The legal definition. So Black's Law 5th edition quotes from Nikolnikov versus Archbishop, etc., of Russian Orthodox Greek Catholic Church. Big, long citation. But here's what it says in Black's 5th. This is religion. Now, remember, it's going back and forth between big God and little God. So when it says divinity, when it says beings, when it says things, it's talking about the temporal realm, because that's where the legal realm is. Man's relation to divinity. Well, who's divine? They're not talking about God. They're talking about man's relationship to the vicar of divinity. So man's relation to divinity, to reverence, worship, obedience, and submission to mandates and precepts of supernatural or superior beings. Well, of course, they think that they are superior. We'll finish this up, and we'll take at least one call, because I told someone to call back today. So we'll be back. Fred.
Did you see the frightened ones? Did you hear the falling bombs?
Our final little segment. I didn't see that we had a bunch of callers, so I do apologize today. We're going nuts with this stuff as usual. Again, the definition of religion, Black's Law 5th edition. Man's relation to divinity, his relations to reverence, to worship, to obedience, and submission to the mandates and precepts of supernatural or super beings. Now remember, the precepts can only be written by man. Okay? God does not write things. Only men can write things. Okay? So realize that. All right? All these precepts and mandates that we're supposed to be obedient to come from men who claim to be God. They'll tell you, oh, we were inspired by God. No, you were inspired by wealth and, creating a slave race, basically. In its broadest sense, it includes all forms of belief in the existence of superior beings exercising power over human beings by volition, imposing rules of conduct with future rewards and punishments. It's a bond. Not the nice kind of bond, the legal bond uniting man to God, and a virtue whose purpose is to render God worship due him as the source of all being and the principle of all government of things. You get it? That's what religion is. That's one of the most honest things I've seen as a definition of what religion is, because it's all referring not to God himself, herself, whatever. It's referring to the people who are ruling you in God's name. The principle of all government of all things, okay? Mind control of all things. That's what government means. So you understand now why we say the court is a church. The court and the government, that is. The government is of the court. The court is government. The church, it's a church. It's a religion. And we are all members or citizens of that religion. Now, Bert, I have to take a call from Fred in California. If he's hung around this long, I apologize, Fred. Welcome to the show, sir. You're going to court tomorrow?
Yeah, I got to show up at the OK Corral tomorrow. And my final Tales from the Pink Zone, I renamed it. I've got so much factual material, I could win this case just by doing what I got to do. But I got a question. I could either ask the judge, what his position is in the court, which, if there's a conflict of interest in the court, can I expect a fair trial? And, of course, he's going to say, no, you can't, But there is a conflict between the judge and the plaintiff because they represent the same side. What is it, essentially, that binds them together? Is it the oath that they take? Because my perception of this court is it's nothing but a play staged from what the original Constitution provided us. And that was a contract that in exchange for an allegiance to the state or the government, then the government would return, would protect and maintain our individual rights.
Hold on a second. Of course, that's a myth. But you asked the question. You said, what is it that binds them to each other, the prosecutor and the judge? Correct? That's what you're asking?
Correct.
What binds them is their common interest to keep you or us in line.
Well, their membership to the bar doesn't hurt either.
Well, but their purpose is to keep us in line.
But is there anything besides that? I mean, did they take an oath or anything that brings them into the same area?
Well, the prosecutor is representing the city, right, or the county?
Right.
The city, yeah.
Well, who does the judge work for?
Well, the thing is, that's the other one. My question: if the prosecutor attorney stands up and says, "I represent the state," I would like to ask the prosecutor, what factual evidence do you have that proves that your assertion is correct, that you represent the state or the city?
Well, I would ask if they say the people, if it says the people, I would want a complete list of all people so that you can verify that they're suing you.
Right. But, I'm going to take the Columbo on steroids approach. I like Columbo. I'm going to be dumb, stupid, and put on that whole thing, and I'll start a line of questioning. In court, usually the judge sits down and says something to the effect, well, are we ready? At that point, I would like to ask the judge some questions as to, can I expect a fair trial, a meaningful trial? I don't have an attorney. Will you help me out if I don't understand anything and all this type of stuff? And, of course, yes.
Well, no, he won't say that. He's not going to help you.
No. Am I proved innocent on every element of the alleged crime? It's going to be a pivotal question. And
they don't have to prove you innocent. They have to prove you guilty.
Okay.
They assume you're guilty and have to prove it.
But don't they have to assume that I'm innocent before I'm proven guilty?
No. There is no innocent. That's not a word.
There's only not guilty and guilty. They use the word innocent, but in fact, only not guilty and guilty is all that really exists.
You can say the word innocent. It'll peeve them. They'll might add to your fine for using it because that's not one of the words they like.
You go ahead and play. They're going to ask for a plea. Just go ahead and plead not guilty, and then if the traffic officer shows up, then you can establish.
No, why would you plead not? Why would you plea at all?
Well, that's
how can you plea if you don't understand what you're pleading to? A plea is basically entering into an agreement.
A plea is praying to the court for forgiveness.
Well, it's also setting up a contractual agreement as well.
Well, that's what it is. So how can you enter into an agreement if you don't understand anything? Before you enter into the agreement, you have to ask certain questions, and they have to prove to you that there's even a controversy for you to even be there.
Well, this would be a case where you wouldn't even want to go to court. You'd want to send a letter or something, right?
Well, I mean, those are different approaches that you can use. I mean, if you're unable to show up to court, I mean, there's one federal court that I was involved in that the people that I'm helping never showed up to court, and basically they won. They never made a single appearance to court, but the other side made like 3 or 4.
If I show up and they ask for a plea, just say I plead responsible?
No, you simply say I am unable to plead because I need certain information before I can be knowledgeable enough to enter into a plea. Yeah, and then you have your list of things that you need.
Also, you can't plea. You can't plea unless you acknowledge that you're bound by the very thing that they're suing you for. I mean, so you're gonna have to, if you make a plea, you're making a plea as a citizen who's subject to the very rule that you're there in the first place. So I mean, none of this makes good.
Citizen is not a good position to be in. Okay.
Well, it's kind of like Burt was saying earlier. A lot of people want to get in there and just talk, and that's just going to get you into trouble.
Right, I was going to pretty much stick to just questions.
Yeah, but you need to have your basic set of questions, and one of the most important questions to ask is, what is my status in this matter? So that I can determine what my defense is going to be.
Yeah, and if you have questions, they should be submitted on the record to the court
in writing ahead of time.
Beforehand, and they should be answered before you ever appear, and you should make that known that you won't appear until those questions are answered.
And the one that needs to answer the questions is not the judge, it's the prosecuting side.
Can I ask that question in court?
You ask your questions in writing, and you present them to the other side, and then in court, you ask for the matter to be continued until your questions are answered.
Yeah, being that court tomorrow is at 8:45 a.m., we're kind of late for that.
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't know. Can he submit something?
He can still submit it ahead of time, or present it to the prosecutor right there. Say, I have this certain information, discovery, that needs to be provided to me so that I can have the minimum knowledge to intelligently participate in this court proceeding.
Well, I'll tell you what, Burt, are you in contact with Burt at all? I mean, maybe you could talk after the show because we're at the end. Onlyfreemen.com, or Burt, do you want to give out your...
Yeah, Burt at onlyfreemen.com.
Yeah, I'm a bronze member, Burt.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, thanks a lot, you guys.
All righty, bud. Take care.
Well, Burt, always fun, man.
Yeah, buddy.
I apologize to the callers. I was totally lost track of time here, so it goes so quick.
It does.
We'll see you tomorrow, folks.
Take care, man.